Welcome all respected speakers. Netaji sir, please check your audio, sir.
Hello. Hi.
Thank you, sir. Mansi ma'am, please check your audio, ma'am. No,
Yeah.
ma'am, unmute yourself.
Hello, am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Hello, Dr. Kunal, please check your audio.
Yeah, hi. Am I audible?
Welcome, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome, honorable speakers, ladies and gentlemen. I, Mr. Rudranarayan Das, on behalf of organizers, extend my heartfelt welcome to all to this international conclave. This Ranjitguru series of international webinar is an initiative by the Department of History and Political Science, Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Adivasi Research and Development Studies, Odisha. I feel happy to express that we have successfully concluded the 114th round of panel discussion today morning. In today's session, I feel extremely honored to introduce our guest speakers, so none other than Dr. Netaji Abhinandan, Dr. Kunal Anand, and Dr. Kumari Mansi. It's a pride privilege to host all of you, sir and ma'am. The broad theme of our international conclave is kept at Initiative Policy Dialogue 2020, COVID-19, and live practice beyond pandemic. Thank you. Now, I would like to invite Professor Sarath Pradhan to initiate his brief welcome address. Over to you, Professor Pradhan.
Thank you, Rudranarayan. Good afternoon, everyone. Honorable Resource Person, Dr. Netaji Abhinandan, Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science, Ravenshaw University, Cuttack, Founder, Director, Assistant Professor, Amit University, Haryana, Dr. Kumari Mansi, Assistant Professor, Amity University, Haryana, distinguished guests, galaxy of teachers from India and abroad, students, and members of media. It is my proud privilege to extend heartiest welcome to you all to this international platform to contribute and enlighten the assembly on different topics like changing political culture of Odisha, making political personal, Thucydides, reality, a Canadian and Korean perspective. We feel extremely honored by the presence of Professor Abhinandan, Dr. Kunal Anand, and Dr. Kumari Mansi as resource persons on this occasion. It is a matter of a great pleasure for all of us that you could find time to be with us in spite of your preoccupations. This shows your interest in academic pursuits. Your presence here this afternoon is a source of inspiration for us and a great moral booster. To the entire students and teachers community, I take the opportunity to extend a warm welcome to Professor Pallab Chakravarti, Principal Jawaharlal Nehru College, Cuttack, and organizing team members Professor Shubham Das, Ms. Payal Agrawala, Professor Rudranarayan Das, and Professor Baikar Das for their reach at this stage in success. I express my sincere thanks to Dr. Vikram Kesari and Adivasi Research Development, who had been effectively guiding and encouraging to conduct this type of the international seminar. I also grateful to the Chinma Sahu for his technical cooperations in this webinar. I hope we will be enriched and enlightened by the powerful deliverance discourses. Thank you everybody for giving me a patient hearing. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Professor Sarath Pradhan, for your wonderful welcome address. And now, I would like to invite Ms. Payal Agarwal for brief guest introductions.
A very warm greetings to one and all. Today we have joined with us three of the fantastic personality and the best alumnus from Jawaharlal Nehru University. We welcome you all from Jawaharlal Nehru University to Jawaharlal Nehru College. Dr. Netaji Abhinandan, Mr. Kunal Anand and Dr. Mansi for this lecture session. I am quite delighted to introduce our eminent guest. Our first speaker is Dr. Netaji Abhinandan. He is an assistant professor, Department of Political Science, Ravanshah University, Cuttack. He had done his MPhil and PhD on Chinese foreign policy from Center of East Asian Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. He is also the recipient of prestigious Jawaharlal Nehru Memorial Fellowship. He has authored a book titled as China's Adaptation to Global Regimes, Dilemmas and Debates in 2011 and published numerous articles, chapters in journals of national and international repute. Even he frequently writes on contemporary political issues in the local media. He is also the founder director of Kalinga Institute of Indo-Pacific Studies. KIPS is a premier think tank which is engaged in organizing seminars, workshops, conferences that are not only academically relevant but hold significance for policymakers as well. Sir, as a direct student of yours, I am quite happy to introduce you and welcome you too. Sir, your topic as suggested by you is changing political culture of Odisha, making political personal. Our next guest speaker is Mr. Kunal Anand. He is an assistant professor of Korean language and Korean studies, Amity University, Haryana. He has completed his graduation and post-graduation in Korean language, literature and culture studies from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, and currently pursuing his PhD too. Mr. Anand has been felicitated for his contribution to Korean studies by JNU. As an area expert, he has a lot of interest in research regarding the geopolitical issues of the East Asian region. He is currently researching on the South China Sea dispute for a leading military think tank. Sir, we welcome you from the core of our heart. Sir, your topic as suggested by you is Thucydides trap, myth or reality, a Canadian perspective. Last but not the least, our guest speaker is Dr. Mansi. She teaches French and Quebec studies at Amity University, Haryana since 2013. Earlier, she was working with School of Foreign Languages, Ministry of Defense. She holds her doctorate degree in International Relations from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. She has received Shastri Students Mobility Fellowship to undertake her research work in University of Montreal, Quebec, Canada in 2012. She is also the recipient of Shastri Knowledge Mobilization Grant. Her latest publication is a chapter in a book titled as Foreign Policy of Canada vis-a-vis India under Stephen Harper, From Cold Storage to Warmth of Billion-Dollar Trade. Ma'am, we welcome you too for today's lecture series. Ma'am, your topic as suggested by you is Thucydides trap, myth or reality, Canadian and Korean perspective. Now, after this brief introduction, I would like to stop here and invite Professor Netaji Abhinandan to please initiate his talk. Over to Netaji, sir.
Thank you so very much, esteemed Professor Chakravarti, the principal of Jawaharlal Nehru College, Professor Pradhan, my good students Subham and Payal, and also my good friend Bikram. Thank you all for inviting me to this webinar. I think this webinar series has been truly international because it had witnessed the involvement of many prominent academics from
country, but also from outside. And if I'm not wrong, it may find place in Limca Book of Records as one of the longest continuing international webinar series. So at the outset, let me compliment all of you for your tireless efforts, for your preparation, for all the good work that you have done to make this possible. And I'm really privileged to be part of this whole initiative. And also let me take this opportunity to offer my very heartfelt Shraddhanjali to Sri Ranjit Guruji, in whose memory we are organizing this webinar series. I knew him very well when I was writing for Sambad. He was the feature editor, and I had learnt a lot from Sri Guru, uh, uh, the nitty-gritties of column writing. And I had also shared platform. I was fortunate to share platform with Sri Guru in the past. So I had very fond memories of Sri Ranjit Guru, and I take this opportunity to offer my sincerest Shraddhanjali. And my esteemed co-panelist Kunal and Mansi, I would have loved to join them talking about Thucydides trap, because this is my area of specialization, international relations, and I have been working on Indo-Pacific for quite long a time. But today I prefer to talk about Odisha rather, because it's a college in one of the most politically volatile and conscious regions of Odisha. And better if I can share my ideas on Odisha politics. And let me introduce my topic. It's about these are missing from the title, the changing political culture of Odisha, making political personal. Okay, so I'll not take much time. What exactly is political culture? I'll not go to Lucian Pai's definition of political culture. What I understand by political culture is that how people respond to the politics, how people respond to the political processes or the functioning of the political system. And we cannot help taking a bit from Lucian Pai, that the underlying assumptions and rules that govern the behavior of the people, our beliefs, our attitude, and how do you respond to the political game or the so-called machinations. Okay, so the point I am trying to make is that political culture is not a static thing. It keeps changing. It's a dynamic thing. No culture is static, and it keeps changing, keeping pace with the changing realities and circumstances. As politics changes, the nature of the political society also changes, and also the attitudes, the beliefs, the interest, and the behavior of people, or the nature of response of the people, also undergo change. So why I have chosen this topic of political culture? What is its relevance today? The point is, today I am talking about political culture because there is a crisis. I strongly feel, many of you might not agree with me, because this is all about democracy. This is all about politics, and I think the best definition of democracy would be the right to dissent. So you are entitled to dissent from me when I say that there is a crisis of trust, there is a crisis of credibility, and the way we are functioning as a political society. I strongly feel that we are moving towards becoming a non-political, I'm not saying apolitical, but a non-political society. From a political society, we are moving towards becoming a non-political society, where we are not concerned about the way the political system is functioning. We are least bothered, or the way the political system is responding to the people's demands, grievances, and aspirations. Uh, I'll just give you an idea, historical, because here Bikram is there, and it's a joint collaboration of Department of History and Political Science. A bit of history. Without history, political science won't find a resonance. The point is that if you look at the first phase of post-independent politics in Odisha, uh, it was marred by turbulence. It was marred by instability and uncertainties. Unlike other states, if you see that it was not at all smooth sailing for the Congress in Odisha. Odisha did not embrace Congress as the ruling party the way other states of India had. In Odisha, Congress had to face formidable challenges from other political parties and groups. So the fight for power and political supremacy was very bitter, prolonged. So, and also the struggle for power was not only among the parties or between the parties, but also within the parties. It was a contestation of personalities, between the personalities. So it was not about political issues or ideologies. It was about uh, uh, personal interest of the leaders. Okay, let me here tell you that Odisha was born out of a strong, sustained, vociferous cultural campaign that ran parallel to the national movement for independence of the country. We sought identity. This campaign united people from cross sections of society on a single platform, whether it was in the beginning, it was Utkal Sammilan, and later on there are many other forums that came up. So culture acted as a strong thread. It was not only politics. It was culture is also politics, but culture played a major role in uniting people, in binding people. So after the goal of establishing Odisha as a separate province on the basis of language, my friends, for the knowledge of my friends from outside Kunal and Mansi, that Odisha was the first state to be formed on the basis of language in 1936. But thereafter, culture took a backseat, politics took over and controlled all spheres of the society, marginalizing the role of culture and history. I hope Bikram is there. So, barring the years from 1936 to 1947, the year of Indian independence, politics in Odisha remained mostly power centric and personality driven. Power centric and personality driven. So, there is nothing wrong. You may ask me that what is wrong if politics is power centric? Politics is all about power, and we can go back to Machiavelli in saying that politics is all about power. But if you analyze thoroughly, a thorough analysis would make it very clear that it was the period when politics got de-ideologized and issue neutral, and politics got reduced to a kind of football match where every player tried to control the ball, turning the game into a mess. This also explains why Odisha remained a poor state and still is a poor state and is always at the periphery, despite having the abundant natural, mineral and all kinds of resources. Bikram was suggesting to have a special webinar on Odisha Daridra Kahinki. We can say Odisha Ebebi Daridra Kahinki. So this was a historical overview of Odisha, the way it traveled as an entity, political entity. So there has been a kind of political game. Sometimes it was Congress, sometimes it was Ganatantra Parishad, these feudal elements in the form of Ganatantra Parishad, the former kings of the provincial states, Gadajata, so-called Gadajata, they were a formidable political force. So Congress, Ganatantra Parishad, then Congress got divided into many separate entities like Utkal Congress, Jana Congress, then Biju Patnaik formed another party. So it was a political game that continued for last 40, 50 Yes, but since 2000, we have government by a single leader. Okay, and the from 2000 to 2009, it was a coalition government of Biju Janata Dal and Bharatiya Janata Party, and since 2009 till now, it's a single party government having absolute majority, that is by Biju Janata Dal. So what is the crisis? What is the crisis? Then we can move on to the next aspect. You see that what I suggest here, that there is a complete disconnect between political system as such, the system, and the major stakeholders who sustain the system. And who are the major stakeholders who sustain the system? They are the people. So if you see, if you look at Odisha is a very peculiar, unique case. Here the regime that has been elected 5 times, receiving majority popular votes, nobody can deny that. It has been an overwhelming mandate in favor of the regime. And in a way, the government must be considered the most popular in history of not only Odisha, but one of the most popular governments in whole of India. Okay, so it has never happened in Odisha. Always there had always been a kind of regular changes at every interval. But you see that despite having a stable government and absolute majority, we see a gradual erosion of democratic values, norms, ethos, and ideals. There is a systematic and sinister attempt to reduce democracy to a mere system trap. I'm using this term, system trap. Okay, so, and here when I was doing some kind of research today morning about Odisha Today, I came across a article by M. Rajsekhar. He must be a South Indian, in Scroll, the popular website, and he says, and I quote him: "It's not Odisha for a bit, and you will run into a puzzle. Despite healthy finances, the state is failing to provide basic services to its people. Its schools and hospitals are badly understaffed. Jobs are not easy to find, as a result of which young people are getting disillusioned with education itself. Welfare programs like Narega work only on paper." So he goes on and on. Uh, I can. It will take a lot of time if I read the whole piece. Uh, you see that Abhijit Sen, a JNU professor who was a member of Planning Commission for a long period of time, he agrees with this characterization, and he says that the puzzling thing about Odisha is its great inertia. The government moves slowly, and people assume that slowness is inherent. In that sense, the population is passive. And there is little political activism in the state, whether from the political parties or from the people. What you see instead, says Abhijit Sen, it's not my word, these are not my words, is a thriving informal sector with people who do whatever work they can get or simply migrate from the state to other state. Coming to the last part of my presentation, because there are 2 very brilliant presenters or academics who are with us from outside. It's better if you listen to them more than, because I'm a family member. All my students are there. I see friends and students. So I'm a member of Jawaharlal Nehru Mahavidyalaya family. So I can come again and again, but you must listen more to Kunal and Mansi. So I'm just coming to the last part. The point is that it's really a conundrum. People are not happy. I can tell you that. Bikram will bear me out. People, or Subham will bear me out, people are not happy, but the leader is popular. It's a conundrum. There is a deep sense of resentment among all the sections of society, but yet there is no reflection of that kind of anger or anguish or resentment when elections take place. And here, if you see that the real pandemic is not corona or COVID-19, the real pandemic is corruption, which is continuing for last how many years I cannot remember. At every level of government there is corruption. In fact, the vigilance is even is raiding teachers. Yesterday, day before yesterday, a primary school teacher was found having assets worth 4 crores. Primary school teachers, high school teachers, lecturers, clerks, engineers, doctors. You are seeing this Pathak saga unfolding every day. It's at certain points of time it seems surreal, unimaginable. You cannot comprehend what you are seeing. So every level you see that corruption has set in, but the government is swachha, but the government is totally honest, transparent. You see that we see what we see, that there is babudam. Babudam defines the system. The political leaders, they do not take the decisions. It is the babus which are taking the decisions. In a way, it is the most depoliticized government that we are seeing in Odisha. Okay, it's a non-political government, it's a bureaucratic government. My friends from Odisha will bear me out, and they have every right to disagree. And what I see, that total collapse of the system. What you understand by a democracy, it's not about switching the button of the electronic voting machine every 5 years and you feel happy that you are a democratic society. No, if you look at all the wings of our democracy in Odisha, legislature, let us see, it doesn't sit for the mandatory 60 days. This time the assembly was adjourned sine die before 30 days. It was the record. For ever since this government has came to power in 2000, if you see, the state legislature, mark my words, these are recorded, documented things, has fulfilled 60 days a year norm only on 3 occasions. 2006, 2010, according to government of, in 2016 it was only 41 days, in 2004 it is 58 days, nearer to 60. Okay, in 2019 it sat for 50 days. So no year except these 3 years the legislature has sat for 60 days. It's a constitutional norm that every government is expected to abide by, but that is given a kind of complete go by in Odisha. If you look at the executive, no discussion. If you know how the cabinet functions, no discussion takes place within the cabinet. No deliberations are take place in the cabinet meetings. There are no debates at all. Only members of the cabinet and all the decisions had been taken earlier, and they just simply have to put their stamp on the decision. No deliberation, no debate. This collective responsibility norm has also been given a go by the government. And if you look at the, I'm not going to talk about the judiciary, otherwise I'll face contempt of court. But if you can make out a point that you see that how many commissions have been appointed, what have been the reports of the commissions, and how many reports have been properly implemented. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make, and let us look at media. You please point out, in last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, can you tell me that any article or feature has come up in any Odia newspaper that is critical of the government or the functioning of the government? I can vouch that there is not a single one. There is not a single one. Here, media is also a political media. If you look at most of the media houses, they are being run by those who are also party MPs or MLAs or whatever. So here the media is most subservient, most pliant, and here we call it media which is managed, which can be managed. Okay, so this is what is the you see that I can with all authority in my command, I am asking or I am seeking you give me one example where any newspaper carries any single piece against the functioning of the government. That doesn't mean that there are no issues. You see that we have moved from one corruption to another corruption, one scandal to another scandal, but you cannot point it out. If I don't know whether I'll land in trouble by saying so, or your college will land in trouble by allowing me to say these things. But the point I am trying to make that, as you remember, Jayaprakash Narayan had once said that partyless democracy. He had advocated partyless democracy. But what we witness that democracy-less parties. We have parties in our democracy. In constitution, you will not find the mention of political party. There is no mention of political party in our constitution. We have parties in our democracy, but the parties do not have democracy. Totally non-democratic. Okay. So in this context, I'll just thank you, Bikram. So the point is that I'll just wind up in 2-3 minutes because the time is running out and we have two wonderful guests from outside. So the point in this context, I am giving a call because I have my students there who are listening to me. You see that the Carol Hanist, the American feminist in 1970, had written this article, "The Personal is Political." I am giving a call, let us make political the personal. Okay, because if you see that whether it is Odisha or any part, this Indian political culture doesn't welcome discussion on issues requiring debates. Do you see debates happening? Do you see debates happening between teachers and students, teachers and leaders and people? No. At a debate or dialogue, that dialogue, which is the most sacrosanct principle of any democracy, has completely been sacrificed. So the question that does arise is what we citizens are doing. So I think perhaps it is an achievement on our part that we have survived amidst all turmoils and Abessies was asked what was his achievement during the French Revolution. He replied, "I survived." So you see that the point is that here we must take a call. If we do not make political the personal, the political will make our personal lives miserable. Okay? The time has come to see beyond the cozy atmosphere of our bedrooms, boardrooms, webinars, college chambers, and intervene in public affairs. And not only intervene, but intervene most decisively. Okay, so the point is I can go on, but where is dialogue? There is no dialogue, as I just told you, that the entire mechanism of dialogue has crumbled down. The point is that I'll just quote Nani Palkiwala and end my presentation. I hope you all know Nani Palkiwala, and he said that if we lose our sensitivity towards the quality of life, it can only mean that while our knowledge increases, our ignorance doesn't diminish. And Palkiwala dedicated the book "We the People" with these words: "To my countrymen who gave unto themselves the constitution, but not the ability to keep it, a resplendent heritage, but not the wisdom to cherish it, who suffer and endure in patience without the perception of their potential. this book is dedicated. With this, I come to the end of my presentation, and it's a sincere call to all my listeners, participants, and friends that the time has come. Let us come out of the cozy confines of our institutional arrangements and make political the personal. Then only the destiny of our democracy will change. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your excellent deliberation. It was really mesmerizing listening you once again. I remember my college days. Thank you again, sir. Your diagnosis of the problem of Odisha will definitely help our participants to understand Odisha in a better way. And as you said that the real pandemic is not corona but corruption. We may get a vaccine for corona within a couple of months, but I guess I wonder that when will we get a vaccine for corruption? I don't know. Thanks a lot again, sir. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Kunal Anand for to initiate his talk. Over to Kunal, sir.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, there is a change in the sequence. Actually, I'll be starting the lecture.
Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
So, at the onset, I would like to thank the organizers for giving us this opportunity to be here to share the talk. And especially, I wish to thank Dr. Bikram, who has shown faith in us and have invited us for this talk. And before I start the talk, I would also say that it was a privilege to listen to Abhinandan sir. And as an outsider, you know, it was a great insight for me to know Orissa and the problem the state is facing. So thank you, sir. It was a great lecture. Here, I would also like to mention that the, the topic which we are touching upon, the Thucydides trap, the rivalry between the United States and China, a forte where Abhinandan sir is already working. He is, you know, Pandit in his field. So I won't say that I'm feeling a bit nervous, right? But we'll try to, you know, share our views and gain from the comments and to the commentaries and the questions which would be asked. So we are sharing this lecture, me and my colleague Kunal Anand, and I'll be talking about taking the case study of Korea and Canada, basically the middle past perspective, and how they find themselves in the conflict between these two great parts of today of the contemporary world. And finally, we'll try to draw the conclusion. So in the first part, the question which comes to our mind is that who was Thucydides, and why in 21st century we are referring to something which happened in 5th century BC? What are the parallels, and why there is a need to refer to the history? So you know, let's just try to understand who was Thucydides. Thucydides was one of the greatest ancient Greek historian who lived during the Peloponnesian War. That was roughly around 460 to 404 BC. And he wrote the history of Peloponnesian War. In the book, he recounts the struggle which took place in 5th century BC. The book is very relevant in the sense that it is the first recorded political and moral analysis of the nation's war policies. Basically, what happens when two powers clash. Thucydides says it was the rise of Athens and the fear that is instilled in Sparta that made the war inevitable. While analyzing the causes leading to war, he identifies three causes: interest, fear, and honor. He goes on to write in details about the power structure, the societal structure, the difference between Athens and Sparta. So what happened was Sparta was already established power, and Athens was a rising power. Sparta had ultimate military power, and in fact, even today, we refer to Sparta as for its as an accolade to the ultimate military power, with the military values like courage, valor, discipline. But at the same time, it was a garrison state also. In contrast to Sparta, Athens was an open society, a port city with the trading culture, and an open society. And its legacy is also that it gave democracy. So they adopted democracy, and their council of 500 and assembly was open for all the men. Athens did play a very important role during the first Persian invasion, following which it witnessed a great economic, military, and cultural renaissance, a power which it attained, and it wanted could build a very powerful navy. While Spartans were good in combat, in military on land, Athenians actually could build a de facto maritime nation. So Thucydides says that whenever there is established power and whenever a rising power comes, which threatens the existence and the predominance of the existing power, uh, there would be structural stress, and it will lead to war. It forms a situation, a warlike situation. Now, taking inspiration from there, one of the American political scientists, Graham Allison, coined this term, Thucydides trap, back in 2012, and then he went on to write a complete book about it, which is called As Time for War. There he says that whenever there is a predominant power and whenever there will be a rising power threatening uh, the existing great power, there would be an inclination towards the war. So whenever there is a great power competition, they will be more inclined to go for the war. This is because, as he says, and I'll quote, that the severe structural stress caused when a rising power threatens to upend a ruling power. And in such cases, even an ordinary flashpoint can trigger a large scale war. So we don't need some extraordinary take place, but even a small thing can instigate the war. Now, in the present context, what we see is that the specter of war is between two hegemonic power, the United States and China. And he went on to say that the war between Athens and Sparta, which led to their destruction, is a classic example. In fact, this is the first victim of this trap. Uh, he, so he also talks about rising power syndrome and ruling power syndrome. So whenever there is a rising power, they will have an enhanced sense of itself and its interest. They will have an entitlement of recognition and respect. They will have a growing sense of self-importance, and they will expect recognition and respect. And there will be, of course, a demand for the increased impact and their voice. So they tend to fall into their own hubris. On the other hand, the dominant power or the ruling power, they will also exhibit some sort of syndrome, which he calls the ruling power syndrome, and there they will have this enlarged sense of fear and insecurity that their position, their predominant position, is being threatened, and they will also have a fear of decline. The assertiveness on the part of the rising power will be viewed as ungrateful, disrespectful, at times provocative, and dangerous for the ruling power. And then they tend to fall into their paranoia. And war is something which becomes, which could result. Now the thing is, why are we referring to this? Why an ancient event which took place back in 5th century BC, uh, we are just trying to draw a parallel between what is going on right now between the United States and China. Well, you know, it's because of the rapid growth. World has till now never seen anything like the growth. The Chinese immense growth, the intensity with which it has been growing, it has led to a tectonic shift in the global balance of power. Now, just to understand it, I'll just give you some figures. After Second World War, we know that the United States emerged as a very powerful country, and its share in the world economy was around 50%, which declined to around 22% by 1980s. However, from 1980s onwards, we see a double-digit growth in China, a tremendous rate at which it is growing. And in turn, what happens is there is a reduction in the US share to the global economy, which is now roughly about 16%. And there are projections that it could further decline to 11%. So from 50% to 11%. And why? We all know the obvious reasons. China, the growth of China. Now, according to IMF, in terms of PPP, the Chinese growth have been tremendous. For example, in 2004, China's PPP was $5.7 billion, while United States was $12.7 billion. By 2014, China's PPP was 18.2, whereas United States lagged behind China, and it was around 17.3 billion. Now the projection says that by 2040, Chinese economy, Chinese GDP in terms of PPP will be 35.5%, whereas US would be lagging far behind, and it would be somewhere around 25.0%. So, you know, so the stage is set. The stage is set for the great power conflict. Now, here I would also like to bring some idiosyncratic factor, the role of personalities, which is also very important to take. Today, it's a combination of economic and military, where economics overweighs the military. So the new term which we see for this new balance of power is basically the geoeconomics, which is emerging. Now, geoeconomics is something where we use the economic instruments like trade, investment policies, sanctions, and with the coming of new technology, it's like cyber attack and also the foreign aid. China is a world leading practitioner of geoeconomics, where it is using its economic powers through its foreign policy. Why? Because simply it can. It is the biggest trading partner of around 130 countries and almost all the major ASEAN nations. So we see, and scholars are saying that this Thucydides trap has been sprung in the world, and they have it is very pertinent there in the Indo-Pacific, especially the South China Sea, the dispute which we see. So this how this conflict will shape up the world, how this rivalry between the two hegemonic contenders is going to shape up the place, the position, and stand of middle powers. That is something we need to see, because traditional middle powers had indeed played a very important role in managing and balancing this power. and have at times act as deterrent. Now I would like to call my colleague, Mr. Kunal Anand, to talk about the South China Sea and give the Korean perspective there. Uh, Mr. Kunal, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Mansi. We both will be switching back and forth on this topic because this topic is very intertwined with each other. So once or twice we'll be switching forth and back. As she pointed out, we were talking about Thucydides' trap, and the whole concept has boiled down to the South China Sea in recent times. And you see that there is a lot of tension boiling up in this region. Now, to understand that, first let's understand what is this South China Sea. So, South China Sea is a maritime area which is surrounded by sovereign states, and there have been contesting about their sovereignty, about the features of this region. And these states are PRC, that is China, the ROC, that is, as we know as Taiwan, then Vietnam, Malaysia, Philippines, Brunei, and Indonesia. So these countries have been contesting for their rights in this South China Sea. Now, as Abhinandan sir pointed out that without history, political science would not have any resonance. So let's go little back into the history of this region. If we look at who have been claiming these areas, these claims have started long back in 1930s. So in 1930s, France laid claims to a lot of features in this South China Sea area. By 1939, however, Japan, great power at that time, had occupied Parsley and Spratly Islands, which are features in the South China Sea. And they were using these features for various military purposes. Now, as you all know, by the end of World War II, Japan had lost. And why is the region so important? The region is important because the South China Sea gives passage to 3 trillion US dollar economy. That is around 1/3 of the world maritime trade. So a large amount of the maritime trade is happening through these waters. Another reason being the amount of oils and gases that are proclaimed to be there. China says that there is around 125 billion barrels of oil under these waters. Although this claim has been disputed, the EIA says that it's not 125 billion barrels, it's just 11 billion barrels. But if we go by the claims of China, which says that 17.7 billion tons of oil is under these waters, it is more than what Kuwait has right now. That is 13 billion tons. And the approximation of EIA for the gas reserves of this region is somewhere around 190 trillion cubic feet to 500 cubic feet. So this region provides a lot of economic benefit to the party that has control over this region. Now, we come to the second part of why there is a debate now when there is this tension has been brewing up for quite some time. So what happened is Vietnam and Philippines have been constructing artificial islands in this region for quite some time. However, since 2013, China started constructing artificial islands, which is called land reclamation. From 2013 till 2016, the surface area that China had already constructed was far more than what Vietnam or Philippines have in total constructed across history. Right. So this was not just a major contention. The major issue was when China started building these artificial islands, it had a particular goal in mind. They were built with airstrips. Uh, China placed their military equipments there. It placed their radars. It has their ships located around this area. So, what the global leaders felt was, although Vietnam and Philippines were making constructions there, it was a more defensive. They had a more defensive attitude, while the attitude of China is more offensive. In now, where does exactly South Korea comes in the whole gameplay? If you look at the whole scenario, you'll see that South Korea has no claims in these waters, and it is not directly involved in this dispute at all. The problem is South Korea is a major ally of United States of America. Now, when China started its aggressive stance on South China Sea, US has been regularly forcing South Korea to make its stand clear on these disputes, on China's stance. Also, it wants South Korea to distance itself from China. Now, although many scholars are of the opinion that South Korea should come out strongly against this aggression of China, the problem remains that, as Victor Cha in one of his articles has very rightly pointed, that it's not as simplistic as it might seem from outside. South Korea faces four primary dilemmas according to Victor Cha. Now, what are these four dilemmas? Primary dilemmas according to Victor Cha. Now, what are these four dilemmas? One, as Victor points out, is the power dilemma. The second is the economic dilemma. The third is the North Korea dilemma. And the fourth one being the entrapment dilemma. So what is this power dilemma of South Korea? South Korea does not share its border directly with China. But if you look at the Korean Peninsula, which constitutes of South Korea and North Korea both, China shares around 1,400 square kilometers of border with the Korean Peninsula. China as a country is a vast country. It's a very huge country, which has tremendous investment in its military power. If you look at the military expenditure of China, in 2020, it was around $178 billion. While if you look at Korea, it was around $39 billion, which is 1/4 of what China does. China at the same time also has a huge army. So when you are in proximity with such a large power, you tend to fear the magnanimity of such a power, right? Even if you go back into history, Korea has been a vassal state of China. Or even if you go to the modern history, China has been an ally of North Korea and has supported North Korea in the Korean War, which caused a lot of destruction for South Korea as well. So it's very obvious that South Korea will be very nervous when it comes to the policies regarding China. So that's why its policies vacillate between engagement and hedging, right? So it engages with China because it has the North Korean issue in mind. It engages with China because the economic ties are in mind. But also it hedges because of the political and military might of China. Right. Michael Doyle, one of prominent political scientists, he has said, and I quote him, that there is a perception of liberal states that non-liberal states are in a permanent state of aggression against their own people. And this statement summarizes why a democratic country like South Korea fears so-called illiberal country like China. Right. There is a structural and perceptual limits to its engagement with China. So this was the first dilemma that it faces. The second dilemma, that is the economic dilemma, is because China is one of the leading trading partners of Korea. If you look at the records, in 2020, the bilateral trade between China and Korea, South Korea has been $284 billion. While if you look at US, it's around $134 billion. So the amount is more than double. If you look at the exports, South Korea has exported $173 billion of goods to China and has imported $110 billion from China. While if you look at the exports and import from US, the export has been $77.5 billion to US. The import has been $56 billion from US. So even the trade deficit of between ROK, that is South Korea and China, is around 3 times that between South Korea and US. So economic relations have made South Korea a lot dependent on China. Uh, how does it matter? Because China comes to a very aggressive stance whenever it is urged. We'll take an example of 2000 when we call it the garlic standoff between South Korea and China. In 2000, the year 2000, Korea realized that China has been dumping its garlic into South Korea. And what they did was they 315%, so that this dumping stops. China obviously demanded more, and what they did was they stopped the import of mobile phones and the technologies from Korea. Now, the glitch there was the export of garlic to South Korea from China was around $9 billion. However, the electronic export from Korea to China was somewhere around $415 billion. So you can understand the impact that could have. South Korea can take a stand against China, but what if China retaliates? It has been majorly depending on China for its exports, sorry, for its bilateral trades, which is greater than the trilateral trade that US and Japan have with South Korea. So this was the economic dilemma is the second dilemma why South Korea is not taking any stance. The third one is the North Korean dilemma. So North Korea as an ally has only and only as a trade ally has China. So China has been trading with North Korea despite many differences. In the recent times, the relations have soured up, as they say, because after Kim Jong-un's advent to the so-called throne, you might see that the relations have soured up. The relation which was lip to teeth earlier is no more like that. But the problem is China has a lot of influence on North Korea. So China's cooperation, South Korea believes that China's cooperation is a key to resolving North Korean issue, right? However, many scholars believe that China would never want North Korea to fail as a state, because if North Korea fails, uh, you see, North Korea will come under South Korea, and there will be a development of regime which will come under US. So the capitalist economy versus the communist economy. So China would never want North Korea to fail as a state. It's a buffer zone. So it can actually negotiate with US on the basis of North Korea. It's a threatening power to United States. There are differences, obviously, between China and North Korea, but they're not enough to break the tie. So there's this North Korea dilemma. And the last one, the entrapment dilemma, is that somehow South Korea feels entrapped because traditionally it's the biggest trading partner. It has been the biggest trading partner of US, although now the scenario has changed, but it feels that it cannot isolate China. It is a humongous power economically and militarily. It cannot isolate China and get out of, at the same time, cannot get out of the entrapment of the American trade relations. So historically, if we see, the South Korean leaders have adopted two ways of dealing with the whole issue. One way is the balance role, where they have been at some times nearing China, at other times they have been nearing US. Uh, so they'll go to China for trade, they'll go to US for military purposes. So there has been balancing role. The second way in which they have been dealing with this situation is called a mm, not a zero-sum gain relationship. So it should not be as if South Korea gains nothing from both the relations. It basically tries to maintain a relation in which all these three parties benefit. The ROK-US relationship and the ROK-PRC relationship are not exclusive amongst each other. They are intertwined amongst each other. And that's why it's necessary that it brings a balance and goes for not a zero-sum gain relationship with these both nations. So what are the counter arguments in these relationships are some scholars feel that South Korea should not be looking too much into its internal matters, look outside, because if it turns its back on the ASEAN countries, they might not be as friendly when it requires it. But the as simple as it seems, because if you look at Canada, which has heavily relied on America for its trade, you see how America for especially in the Trump administration. So if you completely rely on America, uh, or if you completely rely on China, there will be arm twisting and consequences that you won't be able to handle. So what South Korea is trying to do right now is trying to balance this act by not giving any straight away hard arguments against or hard statements against China in case of South China Sea. So famously, this whole position of South Korea as a middle power is Thojinda. It's a Korean term, Thojinda, which comes from the proverb which says, Kore Saume Seotung Thojinda, which literally translates to, when there is a clash of two whales, the back of a shrimp is broken. So that's where this whole scenario comes to. The middle power are finding themselves entrapped in this whole scenario. And that's where I would like to switch on to Canada, which also as a middle power is feeling entrapped in the whole situation. And I think Dr. Mansi.
Which happened to be one of a very good ally of United States till Trump came in. In fact, Canada has helped to build up this Western-led liberal international order after the Second World War, as our open economy. But even then, has limited influence, which when it comes to the conflict between these two powers. So trap. Canada is caught into that trap and paying price for that. So middle powers have, here it seems that middle powers like Canada, which is located strategically between these two great powers, having biggest trading partner as United States, but also China. Now they are suffering economically, and this case, I don't know, they are just hoping that with the new administration, this could be taken up and they could somehow save their face. So situation is really very difficult for them. With that, I would just like to stop here, and I would like to ask my colleague to draw the conclusions, which based on our talk.
Thank you, Dr. Mansi. We know that we have taken a lot of time, but that this is a huge topic that we have tried to cover in this small time. Finally, coming to the part where we are trying to figure out whether this Allison has misconstrued that the power structure across 500 years of history has been the same amongst the leading powers. The power structure has changed. They say the structure has changed, and that's why this whole trap theory does not work here. The second logic that they are applying to nullifying this trap theory is that if you look into the whole scenario from prisoner's dilemma and a game of chicken theory, you will see that the option of war either comes at the third position or fourth position. Now, the problem here is either Allison has been misunderstood, because in his book Destined for War, he specifically mentions that in the current day scenario, there is a very great deterrent to war, that is the nuclear power of these two great states, which was not existing in the earlier times. So in the earlier times, it was war, either win or loss. But with the nuclear power, which is acting as a crystal ball, we see that it's about the complete annihilation of the human civilization. If there is a nuclear war, there will be no winners at all. So he talks about the power structure, but Allison also points out that there is a very major deterrent, that is the nuclear power. Coming to the prisoner's dilemma and game of chicken theory, they say that Allison is saying that it's inevitable, the war is inevitable, and war by this prisoner's dilemma and game of chicken theory, we see that war comes at the third or the fourth position. But I think they have somehow missed the point that Allison did not say that war is inevitable. He said that war is not inevitable. Although linguistically there is a very slight change in the statement, but meaning wise it makes a lot of difference. He says that in no situation, and mind it can be inevitable. It can be avoided, as in the 16 cases that he has studied, there are 4 cases which have avoided war. But he says that there needs to be a tectonic shift in the characteristics of both the already existing power and the rising power, in this case, which is US and China. So he says that if there is a major shift in the attitudes of these two countries, a war can obviously be avoided. But in no situations it is not on the table. It can always be on the table. In such situations, we forget that from earlier times till now, there has been addition of non-state players, which can completely change the scenario of world disputes. There have been rogue nations like North Korea, whose future moves cannot be predicted. So anything for sure cannot be predicted in political theory, because every day depends on statements and the actions of the concerned states. But we would like to agree to Allison's theory that there is a trap existing there. Now, what is a way of avoiding that trap and avoiding a war? No, there is no straight away answer to this. But what we can take cue from is what the Prime Minister, the Japanese Prime Minister, Yoshihide Sago, did recently. He formed a coalition with Vietnam, and he said that the Japanese forces will be sent to their rescue if there is any imminent threat to the sovereignty of Vietnam. Right. So they are forming coalitions. They are sending in their military equipments. So what can be done is directly confront, rather than directly confronting China, and for obvious reasons, because it's such a powerful nation right now. The ASEAN countries should try to form coalitions, which should be a deterrent, because we don't want any disputes here. The Asian region should be calm and composed in these scenarios, but it should act as a deterrent to the Chinese aggressive hegemony, right? And let's not get into the turbid waters of who is right in the clash of these two civilizations, these two powers, because it's a long drawn debate, and maybe we can reserve another day for this debate. But yes, there is a trap that exists today. and this obviously can be avoided. And the cooperation of these ASEAN nations, uh, plus every nation in this Asian region, is very important to contain the hegemonic, aggressive advancement of China at this time. So with this, I'd like to conclude our presentation. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
I extend my heartfelt thanks to Thucydides trap. The word itself is a trap. Thanks, ma'am, for explaining in a very lucid way and also sharing a Canadian perspective on the very set topic. Thanks, Kunal sir, also for extending the same and putting a Korean perspective for the same. Now, as there are a lot of questions in the chat box, I would like to invite Mr. Shubham Das to please initiate the open discussion forum. Over to Shubham, sir.
Thanks, ma'am. Now I would like to invite Dr. Netaji Abhinandan to respond few of our questions from the side of participants. Dr. Abhinandan, please unmute yourself. Netaji sir, please unmute yourself. Okay, I will come to Netaji sir after. There is also some questions for Dr. Mansi and Kunal sir. I will first take those questions. Netaji sir also asked one question to common to both the speakers. So what kind of role Russia is expected to play in evolving power tussle in Indo-Pacific? And Bikram Keshwari Jana also asked the comments of Dr. Kunal and Dr. Mansi on his statement. Bikram Jana said that Chinese existence on one of the historical dilemma, nothing new, but the relevant of American powerhouse to beat Eurocentric notions of development is most challenging task about documenting for any social scientist scholars. But his question, what the research teaches us without address the social norms as the prime object. Not take a question and he has that it should be taken as a statement and the both speakers are allowed to give comment on this statement. Also one question for Dr. Mansi from Bikram Jana. Global literature writing always through their culture related regional biases, but we always not found our literature with the question of not real, only myth, not exactly for his or our country, happen all third world countries perspective. Your views, if you are poor, then your literature, your media, your history, and finally your identity also poor. What is your views on it? Question to Dr. Mansi.
Okay. Lot of questions, comments, observations. Okay, so the first question by Dr. Bikram, if I understand it correctly, probably he is asking. Let me just find out the it in the chat box. I think I am missing it. So probably he is asking about the role of individuals, politicians in decision making, right? Am I right, Dr. Bikram? If you could just unmute and ask the question directly, that would be better.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I did mention the idiosyncratic important role in policy making decisions. So the people in power, especially here, if we are talking about America, where the president has been given the ultimate power, so the person who is sitting there on that chair would have a lot of say. Although we cannot refute the idea that there are institutional views also which cannot be changed overnight. Like the foreign policy of any country cannot be changed, modified, rectified overnight. It takes time. But in my belief, I do think that people in position and their world values, their view of the world does play an important role in policy making. Yes.
Right.
Yes,
I would
Dr.
like to add something to this part. Um, as Dr. Vikram was saying that we have been a part of that Eurocentric development ideas. Right. In this regard, Alison had said something because there is a particle going on, and the particle boils down to the idea that America is the leader of democracy, and that's how the world should function. Allison writes, and please bear with me on this. I'll quote him. Americans have a tendency to lecture others about why they should be more like us. In urging China to follow the lead of United States, should we Americans be careful what we wish for? As the United States emerged as a dominant power in the Western Hemisphere in the 1890s, how did it behave? Future President Theodore Roosevelt personified a nation supremely confident that the 100 years ahead would be an American century. Over a decade that began in 1895 with the US Secretary of State declaring the United States sovereign on its continent. America liberated Cuba, threatened Britain and Germany with war to force them to accept American position on disputes in Venezuela and Canada, backed an insurrection that split Cambodia to create a new state of Panama, which immediately gave the US concessions to build the Panama Canal, and attempted to overthrow the government of Mexico, which was supported by the United Kingdom and financed by London bankers. In the half century that followed, US military forces intervened in our hemisphere on more than 30 separate occasions to settle economic or territorial disputes in terms favorable to Americans or oust leaders they judged unacceptable. What Allison is basically trying to say is we are consumed by the idea that the leaders of democracy, that is America, they have been the protectors of democracy, while China, the illiberal state, might completely ruin that world order. The question that comes is here, because America, as it claims to be the benign hegemon, as per this account, can we actually claim that this hegemon has been benign? It has always behaved in a manner which has suited its own interest. So that's why I said it's a turbid water when we get into the debate of whether China should be the hegemon of East or US should be the hegemon of the whole world, right? So it's a turbid waters, and as I said, the debate can go on because the whole, as Dr. Mansi said, the whole policy making of a nation completely depends on the regime it's coming under and the leaders, the characteristics of the leaders that are leading that country. Yeah. Second question, would you like to answer that, Dr.
Yes, yes,
Mansi?
yes,
Russia's
and
role.
Hataji sir, yes, yes.
Yep.
Yes, and Hataji sir asked one question that what kind of role Russia is expected to play in the evolving power tussle in Indo-Pacific?
Okay. I think Abhinandan sir can answer that better since he is an expert on Indo-Pacific. I am not an expert on Indo-Pacific, but what I can observe is Russia right now is not at a very good position if we compare that with China and United States as it used to be during the Cold War time. And Russia is mainly claiming for regional hegemony right now. And so, and also Russian naval power is not very strong. So in long run, if you see that what kind of role Russia is expected to play, we can assume that it will also uh, try to get into those waters because of two reasons. First, Putin also has this Euro-Asian conception in his mind, and it also wants to counter United States. So if United States is getting into those water, doing so many things, why not Russia? Probably, like I'm not very sure, right? Probably it could. And we also know that Russia is member of BRICS, and Russia, India, and China, they are also, talking. They are also cooperating, and there is a small club which they are a member of. So things are very tricky. On one hand, India, along with United States, Japan, Australia, have formed this quad in Indo-Pacific, basically to counter China, and Russia being closer to China than to United States, but at the same time, uh, India and Russia, like we are not at conflict. We have generally, historically, also we had shared some cordial bond. So it seems very tricky to me, but probably yes. I I'm not very sure about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
In a whole,
what I feel in one word, I would say that Russia could play a containing role right now because, as scholars point out earlier in earlier times, trade was a way to a mean. But right now, in these days, trade in itself has become a mean. So, with trade becoming a mean in itself, China has left Russia somewhere far behind. Although it's an ally of Russia, it has left Russia somewhere far behind in the part itself. But we must keep in mind that
It was before to that, it was 10 days. Okay.
right.
The issue is longing for more than 6 months. I can say Corona started, and just before to that, in 2019 November end, the
Mhm.
LOC issue started. So in between that time, it's friendly countries and neighboring countries or the our enemy countries. We have provided medicines to all of them. Nowadays, 60 CEOs and ambassadors of various countries, they have visited our Serum Institute and all. I mean to say, do we just in the name of that, okay, we have a good relationship with country A, we have not a very good relationship with country B, just our political figures. I am not meaning that it's India. I mean to say all the world figures, they are just playing a game that just to keep people engaged in thinking about, okay, we have LOC issues, we have all other issues. But the actual thing, I think it is not there. It is just the facecraft that we are showing people in the name of politics. Actually, though we are discussing about the international level of politics, so we are thinking about that international arena and all other things. But the fact is that are we trying to include the masses that they feel okay, there is a problem. Whenever any from time in Pakistan, if there is some problem in the Poonch sector, in the some of the areas of Jammu and Kashmir, 3 to 4 people died. They are just putting water into our areas. We are very calm and quiet. It's not a bigger issue unless I don't refer to any political parties, but unless the head says yes, we are going to have surgical strike on Pakistan, we are very much silent.
yeah.
We accepted that in villages, in masses, the people don't have that idea on international politics.
Yeah. Sure.
So why we have such a type of secrecy? Why we have such a type of gaining nothing but losing everything? Idea versus international politics. But I am in a doubt. If it is possible, time permits, please.
It's a
Yeah,
very good
right.
question. Yeah.
You are actually right in the sense that somehow it all has resorted to symbolism. And it's not just in case of India. If you look at the Chinese and the American hegemony, both these states have resorted to nationalism, which is a common trend in India also right now, to assert their power. Right. China says that it was a great nation and it needs to be that great nation. And that's why, because we have a continued history of shame in which the Europeans and the Western powers shamed us. So, you see, what it finally tends to is the game of power. So the game of power is somehow very much dependent on what you call the politics of symbolism. Until unless a leader tells you that this is a problem, we never realize that this is a problem. So the international politics is so intertwined that symbolism has become a great player in these waters. Uh, Symbolism like banning things, symbolism like announcing that this country is an arch enemy, or this. For example, recently Trump said that Canada is our bitter enemy,
Yeah, in a way.
although they have the biggest trade agreement with them. So symbolism somehow plays a great role, obviously, and the normal masses have been kept aloof from this. You're right in pointing that out. And it's not a recent phenomena. It has long been such, just that in recent times, the nationalistic fervor has taken more front seat than it has in past.
Thank you, sir and ma'am, for responding our questions. And now I would like to invite Dr. Abhinandan to respond our questions from the side of our participant. I'm requesting sir to unmute his mic.
So can I know the questions, or should I go to the chat box to see the questions?
No, sir. I will read those questions for you.
Okay.
One question asked by Shraddhanjali Panda. Of late, we see there is a change in the discourses used by the people, media, and of course by politicians in the public sphere. How do you think this transformation occurs? Are the politicians so powerful that they can change the discourse from the top to the bottom? Or are there some extraneous variables which we are unable to locate, which plays a vital role in this discourse transformation? Over to sir.
Okay. Before answering the question, let me congratulate and compliment both Kunal and Mansi for their wonderful presentation on
Thank you so much, sir.
one of the most pertinent aspects of contemporary international relations. And let me add to what they have already said, that it's a very dynamic world, and the powers relations are constantly evolving. So we have to be on alert or watch out how things move in future with regard to this power tussle and India. So emerging hegemon, does it can it replace the established hegemon, or can it alter the regional order in Asia? Can it play a major role in altering radically the global politico-economic strategic order? So these are very valid, critical, pertinent questions that we have to seek answers to in the future. But they did excellent, and I was really very impressed the way they presented in close cooperation and coordination. It was very good to listen to them. Shraddhanjali, the point you have asked, most welcome. So the issue you have asked, the point is that there is no discourse at all. What we see, that the complete what you call complete chaos in a way. Democracy is all about having a dialogue. You see that we are not having dialogues with each other. In fact, this COVID, this lockdown period gave an opportunity to have the dialogue with ourselves personally, that we rarely find time to talk to ourselves. We do not find time for ourselves. So it was a kind of self-dialogue that the COVID gave an opportunity for. What I try to emphasize is this, that this whole mechanism of dialogue has been destroyed gradually
over a period of time. You see that even if leaders like Ram Manohar Lohia, Madhu Limai, or it was a young Bajpayee, when they were bashing Jawaharlal Nehru, he was patiently there at the well of the house, listening to all these critical comments, complaints, allegations, and everything that being hauled towards him by all these prominent opposition leaders. And he was very patient in hearing out their points of view and answering them as diligently as he could. So that, where is that methodology of dialogue that era, or during the early years of our independence? So you see that there is no dialogue. There is no dialogue between a student and a teacher. Won't talk to BJP, BJP won't talk to the communists, communists won't talk to the TMC. So a complete what you call crumbling down of this mechanism of dialogue. And without dialogue, no democracy can survive or sustain itself. That is where this forum plays, the institutions like this forum can play a major role in transforming the way we interact with each other, we communicate with each other. You can bring people from different political hues and colors on a single platform and initiate a dialogue on various issues. You see that we are very comfortable not reacting to the things, not reacting to the issues, not reacting to the debates. We are comfortably just making a point over the Facebook or Twitter, if at all, or we are good. We are doing good. If we are good in terms of our salary, in terms of our jobs or professional journey, then we are comfortable. So the point is that you all must be knowing that the Amartya Sen had written a book, This Argumentative Indian. So where is that dialogical process? Where are the debates? Where are the discussions? You know that Socrates used to have this mass dialogue program. So we see a kind of gradual erosion in our democratic functioning. That is why we must question the way the political culture is changing. And we are moving towards a kind of depoliticization. Okay, so that is there. Because Kunal and Mansi know better, because it's a kind of family get together with three being JNU alumni, and so they would know better about the post dinner or all the dhabas, and it was so very exciting in a way. The SFI person talking to a Congressee or a Bhajpa wala. So at the presidential debate, I was there as the chairperson of election committee for 2 years consecutively, 2005 and 6. And the kind of debates we used to have, where all the senior professors used to listen to what the presidential candidates were talking about. And people from IIT, people from BU used to throng to the this Jhelum ground to listen to what JNU is discussing, what JNU is debating on. So the point, that is what I wanted to, because I can go on because feeling nostalgic and all that. So the next question, if there is any.
Yes, sir. Bikram Jana had a question. What is your ideas on nanochemistry theory for Odisha's policy challenges or development? Or say he meant the uneducated politician and half-educated bureaucrats and the so-called intellectuals that he said in Odia, Tellamara, kind of. How could we prove ourselves in comparison with Bangalore, Hyderabad and Chennai high-growth cities of India?
Let me make one thing very clear. Education has nothing to do with political consciousness. Many a times we have witnessed how these uneducated illiterates have taught a lesson to those who become arrogant with power. Indira Gandhi biting the dust in 77, or Sanjay Gandhi losing the elections. Many so-called very powerful at the peak of their political career have been reduced to nobodies by this very illiterate uneducated people of India. So let us not question the political, what you call, consciousness of our masses. They know better. And these are the people who go to the voting booths. You do not go to the voting booth. People like us, we are glued to our television sets, discussing many things. But when it comes to the voting, we do not feel like venturing out, standing on a long queue and exercising our democratic right. The point is, this political consciousness, this political awareness, this political education have to be kind of accelerated, and you people are doing an excellent job of it. Whether it is Subham Payal or Bikram, you are doing an excellent job by having this kind of discussion forums, having this kind of debates. You have initiated a debate, a dialogue series on the poverty of Odisha. It's an excellent initiative. And if all these young people, now it started with 55, now there are only 28, and it's quite obvious because it has started at 4, now it is almost 6-5. So we must, because we JNU people have a habit of going on, and if we are not stopped. So let us believe in a new future, let us have a new beginning, and then we can write our own destiny. Thank you.
Yes, sir. My last question for you. We have arrived in a post-truth era when alternative facts replace the actual facts and feelings or emotions have more weightage than evidence. So how you visualize the political culture of Odisha so far as the post-truth politics is concerned? Over to you, sir.
You see that lies are making better news than truths. That is true. Not only for Odisha, but for entire country. Not only for India, but also for a country like America. So how lies Trump had said, if there can be a book on it, and there are studies are being done as to how many lies Trump had said during his presidential term. The point is that it is for us to see or read between the lines. It is for us to decode the real message which are there beyond the so-called facts and information that are being posted almost on a daily basis on so many platforms of social media or on even television, even on our newspapers. There are only opinions, there are comments, there is no news, because you see that every newspaper, every media house is being managed. So from where, if I am having a newspaper called Kunal and Mansi won't understand. If I am reading Sambar, I will get a completely different perspective. If I would read what you call Prameya or Dharitri, I will get a completely different perspective. So if I am having a single newspaper, so my truth will be different from your truth. So the media houses are doing a great disservice to the society by being driven through this vested political interest of own. So it is for us. It is for us to. Go beyond these headlines to look at the real truth. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for responding all our questions.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, our guest speakers, to respond all the questions, and thanks a lot, Subham sir, to initiate the discussion forum. There should be no end to the culture of discussion and debate. On this very note, I would like to invite fruitful session by giving vote of thanks.
Thank you. It's a pride privilege for me to go for a formal vote of thanks for this session. First of all, I would like to thank our esteemed speaker, Professor Netaji Abhinandan, Dr. Kunal and Anand, and Dr. Kumari Mansi for their insightful deliberation on their set topic, and we are all mesmerized by their insightful
views. I extend my hearty thanks to Dr. Bikram Jana, Director of Center for Adivasi Research and Development Study, Odisha, and Chinmay Saab, Executive Director, for their friendly cooperation to organize this series of webinars. I would also like to express my profound gratitude to our Principal Professor Pallav Chakravarti for his hearty cooperation in organizing this event. I would also like to thank our convener, Professor Sarath Chandra Pradhan, Coordinator Rudran Das, Co-Coordinator Payal Agrawal for their support and tremendous guidance to organize this event. I am happy to express my vote of thanks to all those participants, including academicians, students, media persons, civil society members who have made this webinar such a grand success by sparing their valuable time with us. The meeting is concluded. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So much.
Thank you.